How's going guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the Vulpine Sinner and got Harem and Helluva boss? Part 3. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Within the circles and rings of hell, there are a litany of individuals living out their everyday lives. They appear in various shapes, sizes and forms. Some are similar, others different. For example, there being a clear indication of statuses if one is a sinner to being a hellborn. Even then, there are several levels of the hierarchy with one's placement in the domain and kingdom of Lucifer Morningstar. For the sinners, there are the overlords. For the hellborn, there are the various nobles and royals such as the 7 deadly sins. There is quite the food chain of the hierarchy ladder and placed right between them is the Ars Gotia. Said group is composed of various families who are known far and wide as keepers of powerful magic and enchantments, making them a league far above the rest, even overshadowing the majority of the overlords in terms of raw power. This mostly depends on the overlord in question. If it weren't for Lucifer being the king of hell along with the other deadly sins being present, the Ars Gotia could perhaps be running the circles and rings of the damned. Yet they're more or less content with how things are, while not willing to demand more of their present station and responsibilities. Spread out in the vast territories of hell, they rested and enjoyed the luxuries of being part of hell's royalty and taking part of the various courts of the 7 deadly sins, somewhat depending on where they reside. Over in Pride, there is one particular branch of the Ars Gotia where our focus will be at this time. Within their mansion, a myriad of their servants were awake, while the one noble family was asleep. Mummy. Daddy. Except for one. Upon waking up in an extravagant bedroom, a young avian demon broke the near-dead silence in the middle of the night. Her cry for help could perhaps be heard throughout most of the manor. She awaited for some response from one of her parents as she wrapped herself in her bed sheets while clutching onto a stuffed animal. Her wait wasn't long as the door to her bedroom opened as she heard the familiar voice of her father speak softly. Via. She turned to see him in a sleeping robe. What troubles you, my owlet? Emerging from the safety of her blanket, Octavia scrambled out to reveal herself with some hallway light seeping into her room. She is an adorable little black feathered owl demon, wearing a set of pink and white pajamas with star decorations. She has soft pink eyes with bright pupils which held a lot of fear, glistening with tears threatening to flow out. Daddy. Daddy. She climbed down her bed and ran towards her father, who crouches down to gently pick her up and hug her out of concern. I had a dream. A really bad dream. Yawning slightly, Stolas wiped away a tear from his daughter's cheek. A nightmare? He remarks with a soft comforting fatherly smile. I was looking all over the palace and… The young owlet quivered, recalling the nightmare more as her tears were finally rolling down. I couldn't find you anywhere. You weren't there. Hugging her, Stolas pats her back in hopes of comforting his precious daughter. There, Via. It's okay. It's okay. He reassures her. An idea quickly pops into his head on how he could comfort Octavia, having him magically beckon his grimoire towards him. In a matter of moments, it floats from his study and into his daughter's room as he sits down onto her bed. When you're scared and you don't know where I am, you must remember, no matter what happens to me, I will never be far away from my special little starfire. He reassures her, following a warm nuzzle on her shaggy locks and a beak poke. With a wave of his hand, Stolas opens up his grimoire as it flips to a certain page. Soon after, his hand glows, summoning a portal above the two with stars in the sky. Octavia looks on in awe as her father sings her a lullaby. It always seems more quiet in the dark. It always feels so stark. How silence grows under the moon. Constellations gone so soon. The Gotia prince begins to sing as they fully enter the portal. Having been sucked into the portal, Octavia found herself in space as her father walked along the surface of some moon. All around them was the purplish glow, courtesy of the nearby sun which gave off such light. It was beautiful with a constellation she could somewhat recognize to ones completely foreign to her. Stolas has a soft forlorn look on his face as he continues his song as he continues walking across the moon with Octavia in his arms. I used to think that I was bold. I used to think love would be fun. Now all the stories have been told except for one, he sings looking up at the vast expanse of stars. She heard her father's soothing voice. Seeing the deep frown he bore, made her wonder where all the pain, resentment and self-loathing stemmed from. Yet when he looked towards her with his bright red eyes, Stolas gave her a small reassuring smile that there was something at least bright in his life. Her. Looking down at the small owlet that was his daughter, Stolas smiles. As the stars start to align. I hope you take it as a sign that you will be okay. Everything will be okay, he sings before looking up in front of him. A meteor flies past them, heading directly towards the purple sun. As her father sat down on a small boulder and facing away from the glowing star, she didn't notice the various orbiting planets were being drawn closer to it, catching fire and breaking apart as they were engulfed by the star upon entry. And if the 7 rings collapse? Although the day could be my last. You will be okay. When I'm gone, you'll be okay, the Gosha continues with an almost hauntingly prophetic feeling to his words, as if there was more to them than meets the eye. Octavia was starting to become drowsy by this point. Snuggling into her father's chest while hardly noticing the moon they were on began breaking apart. Instead of being sucked into the purple sun's gravitational pull, the pair were being drawn back into the portal back to the owlet's bedroom. If she were to see what was occurring once through the other side, Octavia would have witnessed a grand supernova all before the portal closed up behind them. Safely back in Octavia's room, Stolas continues his lullaby. And when creation goes to die. You can find me in the sky. Upon the last day. And you will be okay, he sings as he tucks Octavia back into her bed. Having been tucked back into bed, Octavia receives a warm kiss on her forehead as she drifts into a pleasant slumber. Whatever worries she had as a child merely faded away with apparent ignorant bliss. Days of her being happy with her parents who would do much to raise her and be there for her. Unfortunately, things such as this can never last forever. Years later, present day. The loud crash of pottery and furniture serves as the alarm clock of one now older teenage Octavia Gosha. It practically replaced the one set on her hellphone for some time now. I can't believe you slept with an imp in our freaking bed. A female voice shrieked in outrage. It was unexpected. I didn't have time to go to a motel. Stolas is heard yelling back at the woman as the sounds of objects breaking and crashing is heard. Octavia groans as she sits up in her bed, massaging her eyes as she groans in tiredness, annoyance and depression. A motel like a freaking plebeian, the female voice screeches out again, sounding even more enraged at the response she was given. Whatever else said, or rather screamed by her mother, was drowned out when Octavia pulled out her wireless headphones, popped them into her ears, and hit play on her hellphone once reaching for it from her nightstand. Music set relatively high, she gets out of bed and gets ready for the day. Her bedroom was no longer childish in appearance, such as being filled with plush toys and other forms of innocence. Now it was filled with items and aesthetics best to fit a girl her age with her tastes, such as posters of some music artists like Queen Lilith and Verosika Mayday. However, the celestial depictions of the stars and constellations on the walls, ceiling and other decorations still remained, which showed her deep-rooted love and passion for her family's role in hell. Bedding out of her sleepwear, consisting of a Verosika Mayday concert t-shirt and constellation-themed pajama pants, Octavia dresses into her typical casual attire with her black beanie, with her tiara tucked right in. Reluctantly walking out of the comfort of her bedroom, the Gosha teenager moves along the hallways and steps over a few pieces of broken pottery and other items the palace staff will have to clean up. Making it into the kitchen, Octavia walks past her parents who are oblivious to her presence. They were more focused on each other at this time, with Stella continually shouting at her husband. You want to freak this one, too, Stella screeched out, holding up an imp servant before violently throwing him at her cheating husband. Stolas narrowly swerves away from the living projectile, soon hearing a loud crash from the imp's impact on the far side of the kitchen. He'll definitely need to pay the servant extra to cover the recent injuries. No, of course not. The prince remarks, holding his hands up placatingly. Stella merely glares and spits out an insult. You're a goddamn embarrassment. She turns and storms out of the kitchen. I'm not spending another moment looking at your pathetic imp-sucking face. She rages as she storms out of the kitchen, wanting no part of seeing her husband. For today at least. Stolas releases a frustrated sigh as he hears his eventual ex-wife breaking more pottery and potted plants. Stella's tirade over his recent choices these past months was starting to wear him out. She did, however, have the right to be this upset of him cheating on her since the not-divorced party she threw. Instead of just backing off from the one-time encounter with Blitzy, Stolas kept seeing the tall imp. And quite recently, they had met up here in the palace, fucked like rabbits in his marital bed, where Stella caught them this morning when she came back from a business venture. Finally registering the loud yet muffled music playing in the kitchen, Stolas notices his daughter's presence. He turns and greets her while trying to put on a bright face for his precious Starfire, who was presently pouring herself a bowl of cereal. Good morning, Octavia. Did you sleep well, my owlet? He asks her with a fatherly smile. Was that a serious question? Octavia snidely remarks, placing down a cup of coffee she drank from. Flinching, Stolas realizes they're arguing abruptly woken up their daughter again these past few months. Such a thing could not be well for her growing unpleasant mood. Hearing a bit more of the music playing from his daughter's headphones, Stolas hums a little. What's that you're listening to? He asks, genuinely curious as to what band she was listening to. The young Gosha glances slightly at her father before back to her food as she answers. A song called My World Is Burning Down Around Me. She takes a small sip of her coffee before continuing. It's by fuck you, Dad. At this, Stolas visibly flinches, thinking she was lying and instead insulting him, leading to a bit of awkward silence. It's a band. Octavia remarks with a deep sigh. Hearing this bit of clarification didn't settle Stolas all that well. Oh, how charming. He mutters, grabbing a raw steak from the fridge before feeding it to a large Venus flytrap-like creature situated in a small alcove in the kitchen area. As it munched away, the Gosha prince pets the beast slightly as he tries and fails to distract himself. Rightfully so, as he momentarily felt quite hurt believing his own child had taken up her mother's habit of insulting him. "You two done screaming for the day?" Octavia asks rhetorically. Stolas reels back when he hears Stella let out another wrathful scream as she broke something else in the palace before it faded away. Yet he could tell his wife was going to be angry for hours. Wanting to cheer his daughter up, Stolas had to rack his brain to figure out what to do to make things better. Clearly it would not be within the palace today, as staying cooped in would only make things worse, in his opinion. Glancing at one of the family photos in the kitchen, an old memory surfaces which gives him an idea. "You know what I haven't done in a long time?" He asks in anticipation, trying to draw her attention, only to receive disinterest instead. "I haven't taken you to your favorite place in all of hell." He comes up to her at the kitchen table in an excited manner. "Why don't we go to Loo Loo Land?" Registering the words, Octavia deadpans. "I'm not 5 anymore, Dad. I'm 17. She remarks as going to an amusement park, especially one like Loo Loo Land of all places, causes her to swallow some bile that rose in her throat was something kids did. Either her father was ignorant of her annoyed mood or was rather insistent, he continues. "You were always so happy when I took you to Loo Loo Land." He reminisced, wrapping an arm around her and pressed their heads together, much to her annoyance. "What do you say we go there again? Have a day, just the two of us?" Stolas remarks with a wide smile and joyous look on his face. "I'd rather kill myself." Was the deadpan potentially serious remark from Octavia as she hated and despised Loo Loo Land. Her father took this as acceptance. "There we go. Anything but staying in this house," he says, going over towards a phone being carried by the bruised and battered imp servant his wife threw at him earlier. "Now, I'll arrange our security," he says with a coy grin knowing just who to call. "Security for a theme park?" she questions, confused at her father's actions. "We're rich and we're hot. People want our money and our bodies." Stolas remarks in a slightly sensual tone with a bit of a flourish. No matter it be on earth or in hell, the rich and famous were always a target for those under their station, be it for monetary or sexual interests. "Our money, maybe," she snarks. "Speak for yourself, princess." He reassures her, knowing she is quite beautiful for her age and is quite fetching for others out there. He starts dialing a number as he says, "Now I'm calling the only man who can fuck me." With an excited gleam in his eyes and a near manic grin on his face. "What?" Was the horrified response of his daughter, who had a look of disbelief and disgust on her face that her father would say that right in front of her. "Who can protect me?" "Us. Protect us." Stolas swiftly backpedals and makes the correction, momentarily forgetting his daughter was still in the kitchen. "Being part of the Gosha family is rather valuable, you know." Octavia simply groans, sliding back into her seat, knowing exactly who her father was going to call. All she could do was pull down her beanie to partially cover her face, wanting to die from embarrassment. While Stolas was greatly invested in calling his darling Blitzy, a part of him was making some mental arrangements on what to do with a particular sinner under the imp's employ. After all, he is Octavia's friend. Meanwhile at imp, Naruto was bored. Not just him, but everyone else. The sinner has been trying to find things to do around the office, but everything was relatively taken care of. The place was practically cleaned. Everything was stocked up. The big problem is, there were just no jobs to do for nearly a week now. In a way, in some sense, one could say the past couple weeks following the murder family job as it had become known in the office, things were quite busy. Clients coming in left and right, requesting them to kill off some person in the human world. Everything flowed rather well without much issue, aside from some odd misadventure due to Blitzo doing something weird on the field. For instance, just last week they had a job to take care of. Simple kill and bail. However, the location of it took place near a ranch, and Blitzo ended up diverting their job so he can have some fun with the horses. An odd part of Naruto wondered if the fixation the tall imp had was beyond simple appreciation, given the looks he was giving the equestrians minding their own business. Tired and not really knowing what to do, Naruto makes his way to Blitzo's office. Coming across it, he knocked a few times before speaking up. "Blitz. Can I come in?" "Yeah, sure Nanita." Blitzo is heard saying from within the office after a moment. Rolling his eyes a little, the sinner opened the door and entered his boss's workspace. There was quite a lot of horse memorabilia located in several places, like on a bookshelf to some posters. Amongst said posters had one with the imp team, minus Naruto, given that it was done sometime prior to his employment with the one company. There was also another of Blitzo when he was apparently in the circus, showing him and someone else, but it was a bit hard to make out. "This better be good, Kumito," Blitzo says from behind his desk. "I thought I didn't want anyone barging in today unless it's a new client or if my packages arrived. I'm presently engaged in some serious work for the company right now." Whatever train of thought Naruto had was put on hold as his eyes were more drawn to the desk surface. There was a framed photo of Blitzo wearing a robe, having it pulled down the shoulders with a flower held between his teeth. It was some odd attempt to look seductive with a badly written message saying "Number 1 bitch" with boss in black and red lettering. Beside it were a number of figurines, poorly made ones that were apparently made out of office supplies. In Blitzo's hands were odd representations of Moxie and Millie. On a small plush cushion was one depicting Luna with a small paper crown on her head. And the one apparently being Naruto was kept within a turned-over glass cup with a little sign saying "Horny Jail" placed on top of it. "Making dolls is work," the Vulpine Sinner remarks with a questioning look on his face. It's how I somewhat prepare for future assignments," was the imp's excuse. Naruto was quite skeptical of that. "Really? Then why do you only have Moxie and Millie out counters before being interrupted? 'Cause the thing I have in mind only involves them." Blitzo quickly snaps with a twitching eye at having been interrupted from what he was really doing moments prior. "But that doesn't explain why you have Luna there with apparently me," and Naruto never got to finish his sentence. Perhaps he'll get his answer some later time, or never at all. This was due to Blitzo's hellphone going off with a particular screaming ringtone. Dropping the figurines on his desk, the tall imp answers the call, but he didn't notice that he had accidentally hit the speaker button on the screen as he leaned back in his chair while holding his cup of coffee. "What?" was his annoyed shout upon answering the call before he took a sip of his morning beverage. This was more apparent on proof with both Blitzo and Naruto hearing the lust-filled voice of Stolas on the other end. "Why hello my big beat Blitzy," the Gosha Prince's voice is heard with a sexy purr to it from the speaker of the phone. As this was said, Blitzo spits out his coffee which ends up spraying Naruto in the face. Coincidentally, unbeknownst to either of them, Stolas' daughter spits out her coffee as well. If that wasn't enough, both Octavia and Blitzo's upcoming outburst nearly perfectly match up together on the phone. "What the fuck?" Stolas' dad. The imp and Octavia unknowingly yell at the same time in response to what they just heard. Shockingly enough, Stolas actually sounded to care about this use of profanity, probably more towards his daughter than Blitzo. "Language, everyone," he says before focusing back to the matter at hand. "Blitzy, I'm calling for a special request." Suspecting what the Gosha Prince wanted, Blitzo was quick to refuse it. Well, look, I just had a chemical peel. So you'll have to find someone else's face to plant that feathered ass," he says, pointedly refusing what he assumed was going to be some sexual request. Hearing this, Naruto cringed on the picture that was being made in his head. "It's for my daughter," Stolas remarks over the phone. Blitzo's mind briefly recalls Stolas' only child on what she looks like. Sure, she's lanky, but nevertheless attractive for her age. But he was mildly disgusted as his mind drifted on the topic of sex, which made him make assumptions while trying to sound somewhat reasonable as he attempted to negotiate. "Well, make sure she washes it," Blitzo begins to say before ducking under the makeshift figure he built of Naruto. "Blitzo, what the fuck?" Naruto shouts in outrage at what his boss just said, having thrown the first thing he could get his hands on at said imp. If looks could kill, Blitzo would have been killed several times over with what he was receiving from his sinner of an employee. And there was an added factor coming from the owl demon, who immediately tries to clear up the mixed messaging over the phone. "No. No, no, no. I'm taking my daughter to Loo Loo Land and I was hoping you brave little imps and your sinner employee would accompany us." Stolas quickly corrects, wanting it crystal clear that what he was requesting wasn't sexual in nature. Blitzo cringed on the thought of returning to that place in particular. He soon attempts to try and convince Stolas to look elsewhere. "Look, Stolas, we're assassins, not bodyguards. And I doubt Minato," the imp says, once more getting the sinner's name wrong only to be interrupted. "Naruto," Stolas says, correcting the imp on the sinner's name. "Can afford or get a day pass," was Blitzo's response, seemingly ignoring the interruption by the Gosha Prince and causing Naruto to just sigh tiredly. "I'll provide him with one. Not to mention I'll pay you." Stolas counters by poking holes in the imp's reasoning and baiting him at the same time. Whatever protests Blitzo had in mind was silenced upon those three little, simple words. The tall imp wasn't ready to commit until he had more information. "Pay me what?" he asks, wanting it clarified, as for all he knows said payment could be just another night of hard rough fucking. "Money," the owl demon purrs out, twirling one of his fingers around the phone cord of his phone with a grin on his face. While he would have much rather preferred to pay the imp with a night of passion, he had a feeling money would be more accepted this time. At this point, Blitzo only had one thing to say. "Done." slamming his hellphone down on the desk, which ensured that he would have to buy yet another one the next time he went to the mall. Blitzo was reminded that he wasn't the only one in his office by seeing the Vulpine Sinner's disgusted face. Why the hell were you assuming either of them want to do that with you? Naruto questions, though part of him was wondering why he even asked the question, as he really didn't want the mental image in his head again. Coughing in brief embarrassment, given he did not want to have this kind of conversation with his one employee. Especially one who had a pair of blessed blades on his person. All he did, however, was dismiss the question with a wave of his hand before grabbing his megaphone. That's not important right now. What is important is that we're going to Loo Loo Land," was the imp's response. "Loo Loo Land?" Naruto asks with a questioning look on his face. "Yup." At this point, Blitzo turns on his megaphone and speaks into it. Get yourselves ready, cause we're going to Loo Loo Land." The door to Blitzo's office opens up with Moxie peeking in. "Loo Loo Land?" the imp asks with a questioning look. Given how their whole job centered around killing humans on Earth, it made little sense that they would be heading to an amusement park in hell for a job. Which likely meant they were seemingly going to the park for no reason in his mind. "We apparently have a job there," Naruto says to his confused co-worker. "At Loo Loo Land?" Moxie asks with a questioning look on his face. Suddenly, the window for Blitzo's office door was caved in as Millie's head burst through it. She appeared unharmed at all, showing her head was quite sturdy. However, that was questionable at this time as her eyes oddly shined with utter shock, surprise and glee. "Loo Loo Land?" the female imp shouts in joy and excitement. Blitzo stood up on his desk and yells. "Loo Loo Land?" "Shut the fuck up." They all heard Luna yell from the receptionist desk. The hellhound having had enough of all the yelling and repeated saying of the park's name. Letting out a sigh, she went back to reading her magazine, or more specifically the magazine hidden within the magazine titled How to Get That Male Hound to Notice You and all the naughty fun that comes with it. "Loo Loo Land, agreed." The company van pulled into the near empty parking lot before Moxie came out of the passenger door, only to open the sliding door. Moments later, an excited Stolas came out in a pair of rolled up red shorts and a red apple printed t-shirt. Following him was Octavia, who looked far less excited as she dragged her feet out of the van. She sees her father putting on an apple-themed hat before gesturing towards the gate for an apparent day of endless fun. Dear Satan, being here after so many years brought up a buttload of memories. The majority of which were not pleasant for the Gosha princess. The only thing she recalled that was remotely good was when they were going to the park for the first time, as she'd never gone to one before in general. Groaning, she covers her face with her beanie, feeling swiftly embarrassed when she feels a hand placed on her shoulder. Glancing over, she sees Naruto beside her and gives a brief smile. At least she had a friend here with her, even if he was presently on the clock. Reluctantly, with another sigh, the Gosha princess follows after her father, while their bodyguards snag a number of items from the van before going after their clients. This was an unexpected assignment for Imp, as they were hired to protect a pair of Gosha while they're out on a public outing, which was rather contradictory with their business. However, this felt more up to one sinner's ally after a year's worth of bodyguard experience under his belt here in hell. Upon entering the park, they heard more of the circus music in the air. And in front of the assembled party was Blitzo and Stolas, who walked side by side with the former, reminding his patron of the arrangement of the job today. "Just remember, Stolas, this is work and work only. No one's here to satisfy your perverted bird needs, alright?" Octavia felt disgusted being back here as she looked about. "Hey, Dad, can't we just? Adults are talking, sweetie." Blitzo cuts her off before directing his attention back to Stolas for a final warning. "If you even try fucking my little ass here, I swear." Amused by his boldness, Stolas bends down to poke the tall imp's face. "You are cute when you're serious. But I wouldn't do that in public." Blitzo had to confess he should have expected Stolas to refrain himself when people were watching. "Though I suppose if the need overwhelms you, we could take a quick trip to one of these delightfully small portables." Stolas added with a sensual purr as he ran a finger under Blitz's chin, and just like that, the Gosha proved him wrong. "Not gonna happen, Stolas." The imp counters as he pushes the owl demon's finger away from his chin with a pointed look on his face. Even Blitzo had some standards. And Satan knows how bad the restrooms and some areas in this park would be. This of course merely served to inspire the owl demon to change tactics. "You're right. The back of your van is a much better choice. More room to move about. And the deep clean smell was delightful on the way over here." Stolas remarks with a grin on his face. Pinching the bridge of his nose, Blitzo knew this was going to be one Helluva long day. But he supposed it'll be worth it with the amount of money Stolas was paying for their services. That and it got them out of the office. Speaking of, a shame Luna couldn't come with them. But she chose to stay at the office to see if there would be any clients coming by and set up appointments. At least the tall imp will get a souvenir for her. As the one conversation went on, Octavia heard some of what her father said and practically gagged. I'm literally gonna be sick. Alarmed, Moxie fishes inside his fanny pack to find the right treatment for such an occasion. Oh, crumbs. I knew today would be a lot. What do you need? Antacids. Ibuprofen. Morphine. He lists off, taking out several pill bottles before revealing rows of hypodermic needles, filled with some glowing green substance. I was being figurative, old man. Octavia deadpans with crossed arms, walking away in the process. Ah, right. Moxie sheepishly chuckles. But she said it so literally. He states, confused by the avian demon's wording. Moxie, I've known her for nearly a year and known others just like her since before and after coming into hell. She's just using dry humor. Naruto comments while scrunching his face as he too overheard the one conversation. Though I would be sick as well. I mean, I just cleaned that van again the other day. He says with a shudder at the memory. Lord Almighty, Blitzo's van, the amount of time he spent cleaning it the first time. He honestly wished he didn't use a blacklight. A Jackson Pollock painting to the extreme. A forensic scientist's nightmare. Naruto soon notices Moxie had discarded the needles and unknowingly have them land into a nearby baby carriage instead of a trash can on accident. The sinner freaks out a little and grabs the items before the imp infant inside could remotely touch them. Coming back to the one imp to hand them back, Naruto heard Millie speak with nostalgia in her voice. Wow. I haven't been to this place since I was a wee little tot. Even though a giant letter from a ride sign fell off and crushed a teen imp below, it did little or hardly anything at all to ruin her happiness. It hasn't changed a bit. She gazed about and gasped when she saw a familiar attraction and directed their eyes to it. Look. It's Big Woobly. Big Woobly was a grey dinosaur animatronic with a mismatched face. It bellowed out a terrifying scream at anyone coming near it. At one point, its head actually snapped shut when someone dared another into putting their hand in, causing it to be bitten off in the process. That is deeply unsettling. Moxie notes with a look of horror on his face. When was the last time that was maintained? Naruto comments, backing away slightly. Oh, come on. It's fun. Moxie insists, pulling her husband and one coworker into side hugs. I mean, have either of you ever been here? The sinner speaks first. I haven't. Loo Loo World is a Helluva lot better than this by miles. He states with a deadpan look on his face. You've been there? The short imp asks with a raised eyebrow as it was both fairly expensive and hard to get into the park given how popular it was. Was quite fun when I wasn't on the clock for protection detail. Then again, I enjoyed it there far more than some of the parks in the other rings. Each circle of hell has several theme parks. Some are opened and run by the locals and have various levels of popularity. However, the ones opened by each of the deadly sins are the most popular of them all. Naruto's been to them all, courtesy of him being Verosika's bodyguard, which she had performed a concert or two at each location. In his opinion, Loo Loo World was perhaps the best of them all, while Loo Loo Land was the worst. Bee's Park and Gluttony was probably the second best of the parks, as it was a mixture of chill and wild party. Countless food and drink stands, restaurants offering every food imaginable from around the human world. Numerous clubs and bars in which to dance and drink. And quieter in which to sit back and relax for a bit before jumping back into the food or party scenes. Looking around the present vicinity, the park resembled more of a downgrade carnival. Sure, there was the Ferris wheel, high roller coasters, carny games, all wrapped up in the obvious rotten apple theme. And in the opinion of many, the rotten apple was appropriate given the various looking broken, crooked and disheveled statues and animatronics. Even its mascot Loo Loo, a green stained apple with a top hat, fit right in. What about you, Moxie? Millie asks her husband excitedly. No. Moxie frowns, voicing his bit of displeasure. Theme parks always disturbed me. Especially the mascots. He adds in with a shiver. Right on cue, Loo Loo Land's mascot, Lulu, showed up. Hey there, folks. The park employee exclaims, making Moxie scream with utter fright and almost clings onto his wife for dear life. I'm Lulu. And I welcome all you to Loo Loo Land. If you all get hurt here, just try and sue us. After hearing that little greeting from the park's rip-off mascot, Naruto was reminded of the detail. He saw a litany of posts of previous attendees trying to sue the place on the various injuries they received, courtesy of the rides breaking up, only to fail in the process. As it turns out, there were a few hidden clauses in the tickets purchased that automatically signed an apparent contract to make it impossible to sue unless you were a noble or higher. Look. Via. It's Lulu. Stolas says, appearing next to his daughter as they were near the merry-go-round. He believed in Lulu's ability to connect with the little girl inside. Oh, how that would be proven wrong in a few moments. Rolling her eyes a little, Octavia speaks up. I have a question. She says at the side of the mascot. The mascot employee turns around to face her. Well, ask away, little girlie. He says with a following laugh that it was a poor attempt at a certain cartoon character's heckle. Is it true this park is just a really shameless spin-off of Lucifer's far more popular Loo Loo World? Octavia asks with a smug grin on her face. Unbeknownst to the others focusing on him, the employee inside of the mascot suit discreetly looks at the poster reminders that explicitly stated otherwise and remembered the binding contract that obligated him to always such accusations. "Oh no," he replies with a gulp in an almost questioning tone. Octavia glares at the mascot, making the employee nervous. "This place reeks of insecure corporate shame," she remarks with a sneer. "Tell me about it," Naruto says right beside her as he gazes at the overabundance of legality posters. "I can see a good dozen or so things that can prove that," he adds looking around the vicinity. Octavia smirks proudly at the exposed shame with Naruto's support. Stolas, while supportive of his daughter, gave out an awkward chuckle as he led her away. "Why don't we go check out the rides?" he suggests quickly, not wanting to cause a potential issue with Mammon should his daughter's remarks get back to him somehow. Seeing the Goshas walk back, the mascot employee mutters aloud. "That chick's creepy, huh? Hey, wait till her dad tries to diddle your holes," says Blitzo in an uninterested tone as he walks off to stay close to the clients. This merely made Loo Loo more worried. He turns to the imp couple. "What's that mean?" he asks in confusion. Instead of responding, Moxie hisses. "Don't talk to me. I know you're a pervert under there," he says before walling off with a giggling Millie by his side. As the others of Imp walk away, the park employee slumps his body slightly and admits, shamefully. "Yeah." Moxie and Millie run on ahead with the former sweating profusely, trying to regain his composure once they stop. This was due to his wife enthusiastically dragging him along to see the sights. "You really like this place, huh?" the imp asks his wife with a smile at her excitement. "I love this place," she explains as she gazes about a bit more. "My parents would bring me and my siblings here when they would swing it. Money-wise," she says with a shrug, as living on a farm it wasn't often there was extra money on hand. Let alone enough for a family of 5 to take a trip to the amusement park. Humming up from behind, Naruto heard part of the conversation. Both he and Moxie gaze over to see a worker wheeling in a wheelbarrow, overfilled with so much money it was spilling out over the sides into a nearby gift shop. Approaching the window display, they peered inside to see several novelty cups, containers and plushie apples, with large number price tags next to them. "Yeah. The prices here seem criminal." Moxie comments with a grimace at how outrageous the prices were even for an amusement park, even for one located in hell. "Right? These are outright horrendous. I mean, when exactly would you use a novelty cup from here other than the one visit?" Naruto questions, scratching his head in the process. "I mean, unless you take care of the cup and containers, the park can give you a discount on return visits. That I can see to get your money's worth." He adds with a shrug, as that seemed like the only way such an expense could be justified. "True. But other than that, why would anyone want this?" Moxie asks with a raised eyebrow, as he just didn't understand the desire to own something so tacky. "'Cause it's Loo Loo Land," Millie exclaims loudly in excitement with stars in her eyes. At this point Blitzo walks up to his employees, appearing to have loaded up on the merchandise with a hat with drink holders on them, which had extended straws attached to go into his mouth. For more look towards it, Blitzo even had a novelty cup in his one hand and was sipping from that as well. "Listen to your hoe, Mox," says Blitzo as he bumps his cup to Moxie's chest, soon slurping from the drink soon after. "We may be doing bullshit babysitting for the pervy owl, but that doesn't mean we can't have some fun, right? I'll take such advice when you're not looking like that." Naruto deadpans. "Speaking of, did you waste all of what Stolas paid us with already?" he asks, narrowing his eyes a bit as he figured that was the only way the imp could afford so much swag from the park. Blitzo was glad he was wearing sunglasses, as it helped cover the shifty eyes he was giving off right now. "No," he says in a questioning tone. "Why did that sound like a question?" the sinner asks, narrowing his eyes a bit more. "Maybe," was the imp's reply as he began fidgeting in place a bit. Naruto looks at Blitzo, seeing how nervous he was getting. Instead of pulling out his blessed blades from their holsters for an intimidation tactic, he decided to pull out something else, his hellphone. "What are you doing?" Blitzo asks, seeing his sinner employee calling someone and having a feeling of dread form in the pit of his stomach as a result. "Hello, imp," greets Luna's voice from Naruto's hellphone, showing it was set on speaker. "Hey Luna, it's me. Listen, Blitz is wasting money again." Naruto quickly grabs Blitzo and holds him at arm's length, who was trying to snatch his phone away to end the call. "Not as much," Luna said in a bored tone as the sound of a pen scratching on paper could be heard. "Already setting money aside for you, the old lady and her fat-ass husband," the hellhound says with a sigh at having to fix yet another of her boss-adopted dad's fuck-ups. "I'm not that old," Millie yells out. "I'm like 5 years older than you." The female imp snarls out angrily into the phone. And I'm not fat. Moxie blurts out right after. I don't care. Side note, Blitz, your cabinet for your horse figurine collection arrived. Luna replies in a bored tone as the others can practically picture her rolling her eyes. Fuck yeah. Luna, have those dumbest delivery bitches leave it in my office and absolutely do not tip them. Fuckers gave me the runaround for weeks regarding its shipping, Blitzo says with a vindictive grin on his face, as the process of obtaining the case had been horrible, even for the shitty shipping system of hell. Ending the call, the imp then turns towards his employees. How about Ninid and I take the first watch while you two have a little fun? Blitzo winks at the married couple. Since Stolas wanted Blitzo and Naruto specifically more or less to protect him and his daughter, Blitzo felt that his two other employees didn't need to concern themselves with the job all that much today. Lily soon squeals like a schoolgirl. She effortlessly lifts her husband up and carries him off. Ooh. We gotta do my favorite ride. Oh yeah? Which one? Moxie asks his wife with a bit of a stutter, as he had a feeling all of the rides at the amusement park were far from safe, even by hell's standards. Eventually the pair would take part riding the lawsuit, which had a sheer 90-degree drop at ludicrous speeds, while on fire, with some unfortunate imp riders either falling to their demise or hanging on to dear life. The couple would survive, but Moxie would experience quite the stomach troubles once off of it. Especially after upchucking on an unfortunate imp family and a hell dragon at the petting zoo nearby. Back with Blitzo and Naruto, they were guarding the Gosha pair. They've been holding up their task quite well of keeping a lookout for any danger. Blitzo took up various positions around Stolas and Octavia, with preferred weapon of choice in this instance, which was causing disturbances with some park patrons. Naruto, however, was calmly walking a foot behind the Gosha as his eyes wandered all over with his nose subtly sniffing about. From hidden spots behind several booths, a group of imps creeped up with ropes, knives and pitchforks at the ready, greedily looking at the two Gosha with dreams of big scores of their capture and handsome ransoms in their future. However, such dreams were short-lived and ended swiftly. The sound of blessed blades practically singing with its metallic tone could be heard within the vicinity. Next thing the would-be kidnappers registered were them being cleaved apart. Others who miraculously evaded them were shot down rather quickly. In Naruto's hands were Old and Young Moon, while Blitzo carried a gun that can be used for sniper fire or automatic fire with a flip of a switch. You know, it's quite thrilling to see you on the job, Blitzy. Stolas flirts, caressing Blitzo's horn with a finger. Save it, bitch. I'm working here. Blitzo all but growls, not in the mood for any distractions at this time. Octavia glared at both her father and the tall imp. You two need to get a room. She remarks in annoyance and disgust at her father flirting with the imp openly. Hey, I'm not some day hooker. Blitzo states in front of a passing imp mother with her baby in a harness, earning an angry look from her, but he was unapologetic. What? I just said I'm not one, prude. He includes, flipping her off as she walks away. At this moment, one would-be kidnapper imp tried to sneak up on Octavia with some rope, but both it and its owner were cleaved in half by Naruto, who appeared rather quickly. Holstering his blades, Naruto sees the Gosha heiress walk off, having him catch up to her. You okay, Octavia? He asks out of concern. Does it look like I'm okay? She groans out with a sigh. Sorry. Should have said something else. Naruto remarks with a slight wince, as in hindsight the question was pretty stupid, given it was pretty obvious she wasn't having a good time. I don't care. I'd rather be anywhere else rather than here. Especially with my dad. The owl demon says with a groan, as her dad was embarrassing and Loo Loo Land was horrible. Naruto looks over slightly before coming back to her. He really does love you, Octavia. You should know that. He says, trying to cheer the girl up, as despite his flaws, Stolas did in fact love his daughter and would do anything to keep her safe and happy. How would you know? She glares at her one friend slightly. I may not remember my dad all that much, but I recall how much he loved me. He'd often do a lot to distract me from my troubles. He walks alongside the Gosha heiress. Sure, your dad is being very awkward and dorky around you, but it shows he loves you. I bet he even still sees you as his little girl like any other parent. The sinner reasons to the heiress. Maybe, but those days are long gone. Octavia bemoans, as not only was it like a decade ago, everything had also changed lately due to her father's relationship with Blitzo and its impact on the trainwreck that was her parents' marriage. During this, Stolas was looking back at his daughter as she was chatting with the one sinner under Blitzo's employ. He knew about him more from Octavia, who he hears often in some passing conversations during the past year. He's done only a few things for the Vulpine Sinner upon his daughter's insistence, such as acquiring some day passes, once leaving his previous form of employment to a pair of commission-blessed blades. He was a bit hesitant on the last one, given Stolas hadn't had a proper sit-down with Naruto to get a feel of him being entrusted with such weapons. But he believed in his daughter, and if she thought the sinner was a decent person, then the geisha would give him a chance. However, being a father doesn't settle his worries of his little girl being around a potential ruffian. Eyes wandering, they soon land towards a particular circus tent, having their owner move forward and hug his daughter. "Oh, look, Bia." Stolas eagerly points onward towards the one tent where a young imp tried to escape from, but the attempt was in vain as their mother dragged them back inside. He used to cry such tears of joy at this show. Looking at where her father was pointing towards, her pupils recede as her voice croaks a little. "Oh, no," she utters in dread and horror at the sight of one circus tent in particular. Through a flashback, a young Octavia was shedding not tears of joy, but tears of terror. In truth, this was a traumatic experience as she was crushed against the stage by a crowd of children as they sought to get closer to the malfunctioning animatronics. One of them was the main attraction, which was laughing maniacally down at her, causing her to have nightmares for a time. If that wasn't enough, Blitzo was having a similar experience given he had bad memories of this place. One of which was him having to deal with him dressed up as a poorly done clown, tending to the food stands while seeing a robot knockoff stealing all of the attention and cheers. "I hate that fucking clown," Blitzo and Octavia said in synch. "Oh, Blitzy." The tall imp breaks away from his memories and focuses on his employee. Looking in the general direction, he saw him heading straight towards Stolas, who was currently bound in rope with a purple sack thrown over his head. The would-be kidnapper jumped to stab Naruto with its pitchfork until Blitzo was quick on the draw in taking the imp out with a headshot. Right after, Naruto rushed to cleave through several imps as they dispersed into ash before catching Stolas in his arms. The rest of the would-be kidnappers scattered to parts unknown. Since Stolas was insistent on having him and his daughter go into the tent, Naruto and Blitzo reluctantly got them in there. The Vulpine Sinner removed the sack once placing the elder geisha down on some vacant seat for the upcoming show. While Naruto sat near Octavia, Blitzo went elsewhere as the two resumed their bodyguard duties from their respective spots. The show began, having spotlights shining on the stage where the main attraction stepped out from behind the curtain. It resembled a court jester due to the manner of its attire. The outfit was primarily red and dark teal with lime splashed in for good measure. The jester cap has bells at their ends. And from the looks of it, the limbs are retractable, able to extend and bend far more than normal jointed limbs could. This is one of countless robotic replicas of Mammon's star performer, Fizzaroli. Hey, 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 implings. It's me, the robotic Fizzaroli. The robotic replica introduces itself. It soon held up a sign in one hand with a contract on the other. Shipped from Big Ozzy's factory to bring you a wonderful show celebrating Loo Loo Land, spelled with Oz, to avoid lawsuits. He says with a wide-toothy grin. Putting the items away, the robot snapped its fingers to begin the musical number. More lights turned on as a musical number began with many of the audience cheering, all except for Naruto, Octavia and Blitzo. The formed animatronic mascots joined Robo Fizz on stage as they played several instruments, while the robotic replica stretched out to interact with the audience. It got near several attendees, but was backed away when Blitzo and Naruto got in its way with a sniper gun, and blessed blades were in its face, due to it coming too close to the geisha prince and his daughter. Once back on stage, it poured gasoline on a pile of papers before setting ablaze. From the smoke soon cleared up, Robo Fizz appeared standing on a cheap piano to continue on with the musical number, singing about all of the pleasantries about the theme park. As this all went on, Octavia was outright bored out of her mind. Naruto was no better as he fought the urge to wreck Robo Fizz, so they all could just leave. Honestly, the job couldn't end soon enough, much like this performance. In another part of the park, Moxie and Millie were walking through the game stalls. After parting ways from their clients and colleagues earlier, the married couple explored much of the park and were able to go through several rides already. This was mostly due to how little commercial was happening at all. Once finishing up several rides, Millie decided to give her husband a break and went to the game stalls. They wanted to see which one would be fun to take part in when Millie's eye suddenly caught onto something. Upon coming closer to a closer look, the stall's vendor, a tall pink-skinned imp, gives them a greeting. "Hello, hello. Step right up and win a thing," he says with a sleazy grin and thick carny accent. Millie's eye sparkled at what the vendor was pointing at. "Look, Moxie. A thing." It was a stuffed toy that resembled a penguin with imp horns and war overalls. "Oh, you like that thing?" Moxie asked with confidence. "Yes." Millie's mouth watered with bright glistening eyes. "I don't really know what that thing is, but I want that thing," the female imp says with a near-manic grin. Moxie adjusted his bow tie smugly as he saw what the game stall was, being a simple target knockdown. "Finally, something I can handle," he quipped, handing some money to the vendor's table which elated his wife. "Okay. One game, please." Taking the toy gun from the vendor, he doesn't even line up his shot, just looking at his wife as he shot once and effortlessly hits a bullseye with ease, but the target only moved a tiny bit. Millie claps for him as he was quite pleased with his marksmanship, only for the vendor give him some bit of humiliation. "Strike one, little man," the carny says with a shit-eating grin on his face. The vendor's words clearly irritated Moxie, who pointed at the target. "But, I hit it," he states in protest as his shot was clearly dead on. Smirking, the vendor explains the complete rules of the game. "I don't know what to tell ya, buddy. The target, see? It didn't go down. So yeah, no go, bro," he remarks with an uncaring shrug. Growling, Moxie wasn't going to let this other imp make him look like a fool in front of his wife, so he tried a second attempt with more cash to offer. Firing another cork projectile, it hits the target dead center once more, but the force wasn't strong enough to make it fall down. "The heavens wrong with this thing." Moxie frustratingly hits the toy gun. "Oh man, a real shame, I tell ya." The vendor sheds fake tears to mock him. After all, this was his bit of a scam and rigging the targets and not having them go down that easily. Hissing, Moxie smacks more money down. "Another," he yells in determination. With Satan as his witness, Moxie was going to win Millie a plushie. Back in the circus tent, clapping and pounding could be heard. Some jovial from the young attendees along with Stolas. The others, well, it was mostly Octavia who was hitting the wooden bench out of bored frustration. Naruto felt like he was being tortured on having to deal with his utter annoyance. Hell, even tuning out most of the noise proved to be a challenge. Unable to handle the musical any longer, Octavia got out of her seat and excused herself in order to go outside. A means of escaping from the torturous experience she was placed in. Seeing this, Naruto decided to go after her, once informing Blitzo of the situation. It was at this point did things go sideways when Blitzo shot an imp in the head who was trying to nab Stolas. The surrounding attendees ran off screaming, while Stolas finally took notice of the absence of his daughter. "Damn, she's quick for her size," thought Naruto, quickly losing track of her visually. It didn't help with the rapidly growing chaos, courtesy of an envy green fire swiftly spreading throughout the park. As a result, many of the patrons were running about in every other direction. How this occurred was his boss fighting against the Robo-Fizzaroli back in the one tent, causing a cart full of inconvenient torches to be toppled over and causing the flames to spread. Back at the game stalls, Moxie was absolutely fuming for what's going on. The stall vendor had cheated him out of a lot of money. "Wow, you're really starting to make this sad," said the vendor, putting a rolled up piece of money into his mouth. With a snap of his finger right next to the rolled up paper and lit it up like a cigarette. "You know, if you suck, you suck. You won't get your Hot Tie Hero prize." Feeling a bit bad for her husband, Millie snatches the toy gun from Moxie. "Let me try." Quickly aiming, she pulled the trigger and saw the projectile fly. However, it missed the target by a few inches. Instead of the vendor giving out verbal jabs, he pressed the hidden pedal to let the one target fall down. As a result, Millie became ecstatic and clapped enthusiastically while her husband looked on in disbelief. "Well, won't you look at that lucky shot, baby," the vendor says with a beepy smirk on his face while leering at Millie. Moxie rounds at the game vendor. "Are you kidding me?" Instead of responding, the vendor shoves Moxie away and focuses his attention towards Millie. "Get lost, pipsqueak. I'm talking to the lady." Before he got the chance to crash, he got crushed by an unexpected arrival. "Blitz, sir," Millie and Moxie say at the same time. Sitting on top of the vendor was their boss, who fell from the sky. "Oh, hey guys." The tall imp refocuses towards something behind the married couple. "You should probably get going and find our clients." He then whips out his flintlock pistol. "I got some unfinished business to take care of." Confused, the pair looked back and saw the rapidly growing fire all but consuming the park. And from the envy green flame strolls out the malfunctioning Robo-Fizz, stalking towards Blitzo with the intent to kill. "Where's Naruto?" Moxie asks with a questioning look at not seeing the Vulpine Sinner accompany their boss. "Trying to find them as well. Now go." Blitzo snaps at the imp. Once grabbing his stolen money from the vendor, Moxie ran off with his wife as Blitzo fired off a round at the animatronic, who quickly caught the bullet in its razor-sharp teeth. "Oh, what a mouth," Blitzo says before he dives out of the way from its oncoming assault before he resumes his fight and relieves some pent-up aggression. Elsewhere in the park, Naruto was able to track Octavia to the fun house. It took a bit to properly catch onto her scent due to the burning flames and the bad odor wafting from the area. Entering the space, Naruto went down a slide before going through a surreal tunnel of eyes, tubes, spikes and mirrors. He soon hears the sounds of crying further in. Once avoiding the pendulums, he finds a wide space of apple-themed rail cars going around in slow circles. Inside one of them was Octavia, who was softly crying. "Octavia." Naruto climbed in. You shouldn't scare me like that, and he stops mid-sentence when Octavia kept on crying, not even registering his presence. Octavia, are you? And you leave me alone? I want to be alone right now. Octavia asks, not wanting to be around anyone at the moment. Sorry, but I can't do that. My job right now is to protect you. He says, earning a tear-stained frown from her. Not only that, but what good of a friend am I to not see how you are? As you can see, I'm miserable. I didn't want this, Octavia sobbed, no longer able to keep everything bottled in any further. I didn't want any of this. But my dad doesn't care what I think, he doesn't care at all. She exclaimed, airing out her pent-up feelings for Naruto to see. Hey, that's not it, Naruto told her. He only took you here to. She scoffs. Save it, Naruto. To him, I'm still a stupid little brat that forgets about everything just by being made to sit through a damn show. If he really cared, he wouldn't have hired that beephead of a boss of yours. The only real reason why he did all this is just to get away from my mother's yelling. To her, it felt like Stolas wanted to escape from the confines of home, which by extension, included her, and there laid the root of her troubles. Being dissatisfied with his marriage after so long made Octavia believe that he was equally tired of being a father, and one day, he could decide enough and just go off. That's all he's ever good for now. He just wants to go away, she miserably trailed off. Naruto was quiet and listened to her rant. He was saddened to hear her internal struggle. Something she hadn't told him before until now. Octavia, you don't believe that, do you? He asks out of concern. She snaps at him. You don't know what it's like, what I'm going through. You're right, I don't, or at least I might. Naruto says in a serious tone, startling her. I never spoke much of my past, or rather the past with my parents. I hardly recall my father as he died when I was a kid. Never knew my mother as she was never there. My father hardly spoke of her, no doubt heard of her leaving us one day without a word. He looked high and low for her, but found nothing. For me, all I could think was random conclusions, if she ever loved him, if she ever loved me. He looks down as old memories surfaced. When I was in the orphanage, they kept coming back again and again like a frequent nightmare of the mother who left. Yet I always was happy to still know my father loved me even to his last day. Sacrificed everything to make me feel loved. So ask me this, can you honestly say your dad wouldn't do the same for you? Octavia stayed quiet, digesting the words as she didn't know how to answer him. Hearing nothing from her, Naruto continued to speak. I know the experience of my own upbringing, I won't pretend to know how yours is. Regardless of what's going on with their marriage, your mother and father love you deeply. Well, I don't know about your mother, but your father, I believe, thinks the very world of you. But at least you have them both while I don't. Unbeknownst to him, Octavia was looking at him with a tear-stained frown. I'm honestly envious of you for having such caring parents. Even Luna, who despite being adopted by my red beephead of a boss, still has a father's love, even if it's smothering at times. But at least I'm not alone, as I have good friends here in hell. He turns to her and gives her a soft smile. And you can still see your parents and they can still see you. From what I know with your father, he's willing to go through the trouble to do so, to connect with you. One part of Octavia wanted to trust in the sinner's words, her friend's words, but the cynical side is still unwilling to give her father a chance. So much has already happened in these past months, making it impossible for things to go back to the way they were before it all came crashing down. That reality made her feel worse as the crying didn't stop, making Naruto raise his hand and after some hesitation, come over to her other shoulder to pull her into a side hug, rubbing her slightly in a soothing motion. She hasn't been used to this kind of affection in a long time, she almost forgot what it felt like, from both a friend and a loving relative. With nothing else to do, she allowed Naruto to keep at it. Her mother taught her to never show weakness to lesser creatures, to those lower of their station. But right now, those lessons can be thrown out of the window. That dam needed to burst, and she was actually thankful one of her only friends was willing to listen. Octavia. Where are you? Hearing Stolas' cries, Naruto pulls away from Octavia, who looks on with a forlorn and yearning expression. Don't worry, I'll be back. He tells her softly before leaving to find her father. Making his way back where he came from, Naruto saw the owl demon enter the fun house. Hey, Stolas, he halts when seeing a random imp land on the Gosha's back. Shit. I think I'm supposed to be bodyguarded right now. Stolas impatiently huffs as his beak is covered by a sleeve, and the imp is dealt with by a headshot fired from Millie's pistol, and Moxie arrives. Ugh, that's better. He wipes his clothes, but then becomes annoyed again when he sees that the imp of his dreams wasn't the shooter. Where is Blitzy? He's my knight in shining armor, not you littler ones. Sliding down, Millie nervously answers. He's, busy. Busy doing what? Naruto asks, coming up to them. Moxie also slides next to her with a blank look and holding a plushie. Being a fool. He duly added, handing the stuffed animal to his love-struck wife, who hugged it tightly. What kind of fool? Stolas asked. The everything is now on fire kind. Moxie spots Naruto. What are you doing here? Finding Octavia, which I did. He says answering the imp's question. Stolas came up to the Vulpine Sinner. Where is she? Is she alright? He asks, not knowing of his daughter's present state. Physically she's fine. Emotionally you'll have to see for yourself. The Sinner says with a sigh as all the shit with her father and mother has really taken a toll on Octavia. Guiding the Gosha along, Naruto ushered towards where Octavia was located. Eventually, the owl demon heard the sounds of crying, making him feel horrible. What happened? Naruto turns to him with a frown. She's an emotional wreck. I did all I could on my end. Now she needs her parents. Specifically, she needs to talk to you. Stolas looks back at Octavia and somberly nods. Yes. You're right. I suppose it's about time. He removed the apple-themed hat and it was now frowning instead of smiling to express the current mood. Entering the apple-themed car, he sits next to his troubled daughter. Octavia, I take it you are not having fun. He felt like a fool for not seeing it much sooner. I didn't even want to come here at all. Octavia sniffles. I'm sorry, sweetie. I thought you loved it here. Stolas only meant to cheer her up. If he knew she'd have such a horrible time, he'd never have considered it. Back when I was a kid and my parents weren't hating each other. Octavia reminded him, finally getting all her pent-up problems off her chest. And my dad wasn't flirting with some weird red beephead the entire time. Stolas grew very guilty and apologized for his behavior. I'm truly sorry, Via. I'm sorry for everything happening right now. I know it's a lot and I should have listened. I just want to go back home, but home doesn't even feel like home anymore. Octavia keeps drying her tears. You ruined it. She was partly right. Stolas was fully aware that he had a role to play in the dark cloud that had formed over his branch of the Gosha family, but it's not like he was the sole guilty party. Try to understand. See, your mother and I never really she hadn't been the two of us were never we didn't feel. He struggled to form it into a reasonable explanation. He could tell her that his union with Stella was one of necessity rather than one out of pure genuine love, as with most marriages between noble houses of hell, but that wouldn't make it any less worse. Even if he told her both he and Stella were being honorable in the marriage, all for their daughter's sake, it just fell apart over the years. No matter how stale his marriage is, he still had the responsibility of being a father to the only good thing that came out of it, and no amount of trysts are worth more than that. I'm sorry, I don't have the words. He shamefully confesses. Seeing that he truly did feel regret made Octavia tell her what she was afraid would happen if it all continues. Are you going to run off with him? And leave me behind? Go away where I can't find you? It wasn't until recent days that Octavia felt that old fear coming back to haunt her dreams. What? Stolas breathes in disbelief. He now had a clear understanding of what really aches Octavia. The anger she felt at her father being unfaithful to her mother inside was enough to anger her, but deep down, she was afraid. Afraid that her worst fear would come true, that she'd wake up one day and he's nowhere in sight, leaving her all alone without her loving father. No. No, no. Never. I'd never do that. Never. He fervently promised, easing her into a consoling hug with the same fatherly energy he displayed in her youth. For the first time, Octavia smiles in his embrace, terribly missing the feeling of being protected in his arms. I think it's time to leave this place. He carries her bridal style. You were right. You are too old for it anyway. From the tunnel's entrance, Naruto smiles sweetly at this moment. Despite being royal nobles of hell, they were a father and daughter reconciling, and it warmed his heart. He was ready to leave with them. Suddenly, an imp jumps down from a ceiling opening with a switchblade, ready to surprise him. Before Naruto can act and slay the one imp, Stolas turns around and his eyes glow brightly, making the imp turn to stone and fall. Whoa. Naruto gaped in surprise. Note to self, never make you angry. A wise reminder, Naruto. Stolas approved. During the walk out, Octavia whispers loud enough for her father to hear. I guess he was right. About what? Stolas asks, wondering just what the sinner could have been right about. Naruto told me to talk to you to get rid of my doubts. Octavia says, a small smile forming on her face as she thinks about what he had said. I see. Stolas says uneasily. About Naruto he begins to say awkwardly, thinking a certain line of thought. He's a friend, Dad. One of my only ones, actually. Octavia interrupts her father as she had a hunch about just what he was going to talk about regarding the sinner. Stolas was quiet when digesting this bit of information as he walked his daughter out of the funhouse, with Naruto following behind them. Outside, there was still mass pandemonium once dusk fell, and the rest of the imp team were about to finish off Robo Fizz. Moxie mounted the escaped dragon from the petting zoo, and it chased the wheeling robot. Grabbing it by its collar and flinging it up before swallowing Robo Fizz whole, all while their intern and their charges calmly exited the park with Octavia snuggling in closer to her father's hold. So, what would you like to do now? The Gosha prince asked his daughter, this time truly hearing what she wanted. Oh, could we go to stylish occult? Octavia requested. They sell weird taxidermy there. Stolas glances at Naruto once hearing his chuckle. Of course you'd want to go there. What's next in your collection this time? Octavia put a finger on her lip and pondered a little. A beaver and a fox. She adds in with an impish smile on her face. Not funny. Naruto remarks with a deadpan look on his face at the remark. She snorts a little with mild humor. Stolas gives a forced smile on the suggestion, but compiles anyway. Okay. Octavia chuckles. Thanks, Dad. You're okay sometimes. While not really sold on where to go next, it was worth it just to see her smile again. Thank you, Via. Stolas smiled back. Thank you began to say before his words were cut off by a deafening sound. Said sound was a massive explosion that rocked the now destroyed park, sending the rest of the imp members hurtling through the sky, screaming. Only to painfully land down in front of Stolas, Octavia, and Naruto. Once again, you've ruined another good thing, sir. Moxie sarcastically droned in a pained tone from the bruises he received as a result of the rough landing on the ground. Crumbs, pretty sure I busted a rib, the short imp thinks to himself, knowing that he would be feeling it the next morning. So worth it. Blitzo victoriously declared. That slutty clown had it coming. He calls out in a woozy tone before both he and Moxie pass out from exhaustion with Millie soon after. Naruto shakes his head with a smile. Guess that would be the highlight of today, he admitted as he looked at the burning amusement park. Finally seeing this place up in flames. He remarks with a grin on his face, pleased to see the eyesore burning to the ground. Good riddance. Octavia muttered in agreement, more than pleased to see the place burning to the ground as well. She was also hoping that a certain animatronic clown burned along with it. Breaking away from the spectacle, Naruto went to check on his coworkers when he noticed Millie being dragged away by a black queeve, a fly-like puppy dog creature native to hell. Hey. Get back here. She's not food. He shouts before quickly flinging one of his blessed blades at the creature, killing it. Ah, thanks Naruto, I'm gonna nap now. Millie says in a delirious tone of voice as the sinner picks her up like a sack of potatoes and carries her back over to where the others are. So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.